President Obama is back from vacation to a world that's blowing up around him. Terrorists have their sights set on Iraq and Syria. Vladimir Putin has his sights set on Ukraine. And Obama faces a big question. Did his own failures cause these problems in the first place?
Critics say the White House is simply lurching from one emergency to the next with no plan of action and no strategy for the future. Dale Hurd has that story.
Officials say the U.S. has begun surveillance flights over Syria in a move that could pave the way for airstrikes against Islamic State militants. After 3 years of war in Syria and months of ISIS rampaging through Iraq, White House officials are still trying to get on the same page. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel called ISIS an imminent threat to the United States. Then other White House officials backed away from that. One potential target for the U.S. military, the northern Syrian city of Raqqa, an ISIS stronghold.
Raqqa is about the safest territory for the Islamic State that currently exists.
The London Mirror reports British and U.S. special forces are forming a hunter-killer unit to smash the Islamic State by hitting its command structure. And things just got more dangerous in Ukraine, with the announcement that Ukraine has captured 10 Russian soldiers on its soil. The two nations are meeting for talks that are expected to go nowhere. President Obama has to decide if the U.S. will help Ukraine in a support role, and both choices are bad. If the U.S. doesn't help, eastern Ukraine could be overrun by a Russian invasion. But increasing military aid to Ukraine risks a U.S.-Russian showdown in a part of the world where Russia is militarily stronger than the United States. But some members of Congress say it's time for America to stop acting weak.
This is an administration, which the kindest word I can use is feckless, where they have not outlined a role that the United States of America has to play, and that's a leadership role. The president has to understand that America must lead, and when America hasn't, a lot of bad things happen.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
You know, that statement, nature abhors a vacuum, and we've left a vacuum of leadership. There's no question about it, and the bad guys come rushing into that vacuum. Well, President Obama called the Islamic terrorists in Iraq, quote, the JV squad. But now they're brutally attacking innocent Christians and Yazidis, and we're going to show you just how horrible those assaults have been by that so-called JV squad. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News in Washington.
Pat, U.S. officials call ISIS terrorists an incredible fighting force, and their relentless advance has created a refugee crisis that's unimaginable. Chris Mitchell files this latest report from northern Iraq.
It looks like a scene out of the Bible, a modern-day exodus. Tens of thousands made the trek from Mount Sinjar all the way here to the United Nations refugee camp. For some, a 2, 3, even 4-day journey. Most of them came with just the clothes on their back. And out of the multitude, each one has a story. When ISIS attacked Sinjar, home to most of these Yazidis, Guli Udaida, a name which means God giveth, said it felt like the end of the world.
When they came, they caught some people and kidnapped beautiful girls and took them away. We escaped. The ones that stayed, ISIS killed.
When they got to Mount Sinjar, her son went back for food. ISIS captured him, shot him, took out his eyes and cut off his head. His friend buried him. The mountain had its own horrors. Flus Kadar used this cap from a medicine bottle to keep her children alive.
I gave my children a drop of water every hour. The water was very far away.
When the Yazidis made their escape from Mount Sinjar, this is the route that they took. Mount Sinjar is about 100 miles away, and most of that is simply desert. They finally came to this desert road behind me, crossed the Tigris River, and made their way up the road to the United Nations camp. It took Kadar 4 days to make the walk. He had arrived just 1 hour before we talked to him.
We are in a desperate situation. We don't have any hope. We don't have any salvation. I am tired and I just want to get some sleep.
These 12-year-old boys, like Tassim, saw things likely to haunt them the rest of their lives. Razine remembers the mountain.
Many kids died on the mountain because there was no water. We escaped from ISIS because they wanted us to convert to Islam or be killed. I was there when ISIS came and shot one girl with a bullet in the head because they told her to convert. She refused, and they killed her.
When you go from a home to a tent within days, how do you deal with the 120-degree heat, knowing that winter is on its way?
We are sleeping on the ground. The rain is coming and we don't know what we're going to do. We have no future.
Here in the Middle East, the Christians and the Yazidis, they cut us like sheep. There is no mercy for us.
The plight of the Yazidis reminded our translator when he was a refugee from Saddam Hussein in 1991.
It's not easy to explain. You can see, as you see, it's horrible, man.
In this tent city, life goes on. An elderly woman makes tea for her family. Young children play a game out of bottle caps. The UN supplies water. It's a refuge, but not a home. The war-weary faces of these Yazidis bear a horrific past, a precarious present, and an unknown future. Sometimes the ordeal spills over in tears. Many don't want to see Iraq anymore.
We wait for the mercy of God and people like you to be protected from the evil men.
They're also asking the U.S. and the West for help.
My request for all the believers in America and all over the world, from all the church and around the world to pray for these people.
Chris Mitchell, Bajid Kandala Refugee Camp, Northern Iraq.
Pat, some of those scenes and certainly their stories are simply heartbreaking.
Well, it's hideous what these monsters are doing. This ISIS is monsters. They are absolute animals. They are fanatic monsters. They have no heart, no feeling, no compassion. They're just butchers. And they have grown on the scene. I hate to say it because the United States has failed in its job as the most powerful nation on earth. In the last couple of years, we have let them grow. We didn't have to, but they grew in Syria. Because we did nothing, and we then did not have a status of forces agreement in Iraq, and we pulled out precipitately, and they were able to take great swaths of territory. Now they have a great deal of money, they have sophistication, we understand they have shoulder-fired missiles, Stinger missiles, that kind of thing. They have tanks, they have all kinds of sophisticated equipment, and we just walked away. Now we're getting back in, but it's kind of like we're dipping a toe in the water instead of coming in to help these people. So they need our prayers. But look, CBN is not going to wait for the Obama administration to act. We're acting. And CBN International is up there helping those Christians, helping the Yazidis, helping those who are suffering. And they need food, they need clothing, they need water, they need blankets, they need all this. Now, it's CBN International Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. So this is the time to do something generous, to help those who are suffering. But it breaks your heart to see what's done, the inhumanity of man. And I want to tell you, I have a book here. I will give you this if you haven't already got it. We have about 180,000 people that have received this already. Islam, Religion of Peace. I remember some time ago when George Bush said Islam was a religion of peace. This ISIS is the tip of the spear of Islam. I'll send you this book. It's a very well done book, carefully thought out by Islamic scholars to show you precisely from the Quran and the Hadith what these people believe. So it's there for you if you want it. But let's do something to help these people, and we're not going to wait for the what John McCain calls the feckless administration. We're going to move, and we'll help these people because we belong to the Lord. John?
Pat, here at home, it turns out those missing IRS emails aren't missing after all. Judicial Watch, a conservative government watchdog, says it's been told by the government that backups of Lois Lerner's missing emails do exist. The group's president, Tom Fitton, said Department of Justice attorneys for the Internal Revenue Service told Judicial Watch on Friday that Lois Lerner's emails, indeed all government computer records, are backed up by the federal government in case of a government-wide catastrophe. He also said those attorneys report it would be too difficult to find Lerner's emails, but he added that they acknowledge that the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration is looking into the matter. Pat?
How many years does it take to look into a matter? You talk about stonewalling. I mean, the ISA and his committee members must be, chomping at the bit and foaming at the mouth. This is awful, what these people are doing. And they're basically saying, we're going to give you nothing, so keep on yelling, and we're going to keep on slow walking this thing. And one day you'll be out of office, or we'll be gone, or something will happen, and something else will go on. There needs to be a special prosecutor. I don't like them at all, but we need to have one. And yet, when I asked Jay Sekulow, who does it? Well, it's Eric Holt of the Justice Department. So he's not going to appoint somebody who will really investigate this thing, because they're basically working on their dime. They're working on their playbook. And this is the Obama's administration's answer to the cry of people for tax justice. They ain't going to get any. John.
Pat, there are renewed calls for a new alert system after this weekend's magnitude 6 earthquake rattled Napa, California. Supporters say it would work much like systems already in place in Mexico and Japan, and could give people as much as 40 seconds in warning time to take cover. Meanwhile, Napa Valley remains on high alert for aftershocks. Sunday's earthquake destroyed dozens of homes and buildings, causing an estimated $1 billion in damage.
Probably the most severe earthquake that's happened to the Napa wine industry maybe in decades.
We want to make sure that the safety level increases and that people aren't going near buildings that have where there's a threat that debris may fall.
In spite of the catastrophe, Napa officials are promoting tourism. They're telling would-be visitors 80% of the region's wineries were not affected by the quake. The Department of Veterans Affairs says there's no proof delays in care caused any deaths at a VA hospital in Phoenix. Earlier this year, shocking revelations that up to 40 veterans died while waiting for care from the Phoenix facility. That exposed serious problems at other VA hospitals. While veterans waited months for appointments, VA employees were falsifying records to cover up the delays. But a new report by the VA's Inspector General says they could not conclusively prove that those delays caused any deaths. Still, VA Secretary Robert McDonald acknowledges the VA is in the midst of a very serious crisis. Well, Burger King is the latest American business considering relocating its headquarters to avoid high corporate taxes. It plans to buy the Canadian food chain Tim Hortons. Burger King could then relocate its headquarters to Canada, where taxes are much lower. President Obama and other Democrats have criticized businesses for wanting to move outside the U.S. to cut their tax bills because that means less money coming into Washington. But others say the U.S. business tax rate is far too high and the U.S. corporate tax system needs to be changed to help businesses succeed. Pat?
We have the highest corporate tax system in the world. And our corporations not only have to pay federal tax, which is high, but they also have to pay state taxes, which are also in places like California and New York very high. So if they can do an inversion and merge into a company that's located, say, in Ireland, where there maybe is 11 or 12% tax, or they can go to Canada where it's somewhat lower. Tim Hortons is located in Canada. Then they will save a lot of money. And these corporations have trillions of dollars stashed overseas, trillions, in cash, just sitting in the bank that they won't bring home. The minute they bring it home, it's going to be subject to these incredible draconian penalties. All Congress has got to do is say, look, if you've got earnings overseas and they've been taxed in a foreign jurisdiction, you can bring them home and repatriate them, and the tax will be 5% or something. And suddenly there'll be a flood of cash coming in to build new factories and get new equipment and put people to work. It would be a tremendous boon, but oh no, we're going to stick it to those nasty corporations. This is stupid. This is tax policy that's hurting us, and it would be so simple to change these taxes. Go down to a basic tax rate of, say, 20% or something like that. It would be a huge boon, and suddenly corporations from other parts of the world would be coming here instead of us going there. But to say it's not patriotic, I remember a law decision that was by a very eminent jurist in the New York, of course he's, I guess, Second Circuit, but he said nobody has an obligation, much less an honorable right to order their affairs to the convenience of the Internal Revenue Service. We can order our affairs to the best convenience we can find to avoid taxes. Not to evade taxes, that's a crime, but to avoid them by the way we make our planning. And that was a landmark decision from an eminent jurist. We have no obligation, no sacred right, no moral obligation whatsoever to order our affairs to the convenience of the Internal Revenue Service. And yet Obama said it's not patriotic to want to go someplace to pay lower taxes. Nonsense. John.
Pat, a new study has found another reason why American kids may be overweight or obese: their parents. According to the study published in the journal Pediatrics, more than 3/4 of the parents interviewed in the study didn't realize that their kids were overweight. Researchers say as kids have gotten bigger over the years, it's become common to see more heavier children, so if everyone else is big, that's the new normal. Parents then have a harder time realizing their children are as overweight as they really are. And Pat, we've said time and again that this obesity epidemic could be solved if more people simply tuned in to the 700 Club.
Absolutely. We're telling parents, control your children. They do not eat except what you give them. If you give it to them, they will eat it. And if you want to give them sugary food, if you want to give them fatty food, then they will get fat. And it's just too bad. And they will get diabetes, and they will get heart conditions, and they will die at an early age, which may be what you want. I don't know. But if you want them to live long and be healthy, get them on fruits and vegetables and, you know.
Things that aren't addictive, right?
Things that aren't addictive. And
or damaging.
Protein. You know, beans. I'm a great fan of beans. Black beans, navy beans, pinto beans, every kind of bean.
It's a wise word.
They're good for you. They're good for children.
Former President Jimmy Carter is set to be the keynote speaker at a Muslim convention in Detroit this Friday. That's according to the Toledo Blade. The Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA, is hosting the event. CBN News has reported ISNA is the nation's largest Muslim group with ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas. ISNA leader Mohammed Magid has also been an advisor to the Obama administration. This year's conference is about elevating Muslim American culture. Speakers will offer ideas for advancing Islam in America over the next 5 years. The government of Australia plans to spend $60 million to fund measures to oppose violent Muslim extremism and radicalization. Australia wants to strengthen programs aimed at preventing young people from getting involved with Islamic terrorists in Iraq and Syria. Prime Minister Tony Abbott says at least 60 Australians are fighting with ISIS overseas. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.